So, let's take a look at Pit People, which is a game that I've had on my watch list for a long time, and I never really got around to buying it until recently. And I'm actually quite happy that I did, because this is one of the most hilarious games that I've played in a very long time. Now, the main thing about this game is the gameplay itself, which is incredibly fun. But before we get started into the gameplay, I'm just going to let the game speak for itself, as it were, on what it actually has ahead of itself.
I find myself wondering what the world must have been like before the bear crashed into our frail planet, transforming all we once knew into a colorful kaleidoscope of delicious chaos, and I love it. The world was more hospitable, no doubt, more orderly, more sensibly sickening because it sounded boring, and I hate being bored. I can't imagine a world without the bear, or the storms, yes, the storms. Beautiful waves of emerald blood cry down from the heavens, promising death in lawless disarray, constantly upsetting the order. I get butterflies in my tummy just thinking about it. Yes, yes! Speaking of which... Let's see. Oh, it's Horatio, the humble blueberry farmer, loving father and the most boring creature on the face of this planet. But what's this? Looks like you've got a spicy situation on your hands, Well, it's been nice knowing you, Horatio. Not really, but now it's time for you to die. Yes, how exciting. Not for you, of course.
Quiet. So, Pit People is a hex-based co-optional strategy game in which you control up to 6 different characters. The game itself was brought to you by the developers called The Behemoth, and I have looked into the history of them, and it did seem that this was the first time in their history of making games that they've tried this kind of game. And it seemed to be quite a leap, something out of their comfort zone, which actually that's something I like developers seeing to do. Like, you should not hate a developer for trying something completely new, and I'm glad that they did, because this is a brilliant game. It's got the same feeling as they do in their older games as well, which is something you can play from the sofa, and that's something they actually mentioned as well. It's, quote, in their blood. And by that I mean it's in their bloods to create games that you can play with a friend or just on your own in the sofa in front of your television with a controller. Simple as that. And that has translated itself over into this game as well. But that is not necessarily a bad thing, even if you are a more intense gamer. Because you've got a lot of different things ahead of yourself. It's a very strategic game. And yeah, you can take your time to do your turns, don't worry about that. But you can activate a thing called permadeath, which does give you some things to think about, and it actually makes it a lot more intense as well. Permadeath means if your characters die, which you can have up to 6, they are gone forever, so you have to find a new one to replace that one should they die, and that can make it be quite scary. Then on top of that, you also have the insane mode, which is something incredibly difficult, but I've been enjoying it so far, and honestly I'm not complaining about that at all, one little bit. So what really brings this game ahead of something, say, something else that's in the same sort of vein or familiarity? Well, the humour. The humour is the kind of thing that strikes out to me as making this a game that I want to play through and through. I just want to see the jokes that come along. And yeah, like I said, it's a game meant to be played casually on the most part, but that doesn't stop you from making it challenging. And in fact, yeah, it's streamlined, sure, whatever. Some people might not like it. Like, some people might not enjoy a streamlined kind of story. But honestly, I like it. And that's fine enough for me, to be fair. Not everything needs to be complex with millions of different paths you can go through. You've got mini quests, you've got little areas to go through, and side quests, and yeah, you've got those. But the main story, streamlined, and honestly, it's fine. So let's start talking about the actual gameplay then. So, like I said, you've got 6 different characters, and you can recruit any other character you want. So if you get into a combat and you see a character you're like, I want that, you can. You can recruit him if you keep them alive as a last enemy. And that is incredibly fun as well. Now, I've messed this up a couple of times already, because I tried to get a certain enemy and like, ah, damn it, I killed it. But it's what makes it fun, really. It gives you a challenge, it gives you something to look forwards to, something to plan. And if you messed up the planning, well, you messed up your character, it's gone. You can't do anything about that, you can't help anything about that, it's gone, and, well, that's the shame.
That's right. Run, little man. You tiny coward. Run for shelter. It's not a trap. Trust me. You should go to the roof. There's lots of shelters up there. Comforting shelters. Tons of shelters. Trust me. It's going to be awesome and shelterous. Yep, there's still more stairs. So much shelters. There's like 5 shelters.
Can you dress it up though? But you can't. Careful, back with truck. You can all have it. Beat on it. You'll be all on a comic page.
Hey, Horatio. Look over there. Going up. Ding. What's this? A beautiful lady. She looked hungry. Horatio shared his blueberries.
Here, I know you got it.
No, you shared your berries.
Huh?
How generous of you.
How did you
Her
win?
name was Pipistrella, and though she looked more than capable, she requested Horatio's aid. You see, her castle was raided by grumpy warriors, and she doesn't like that very much. Go on, my little hero. Perhaps this could become a mutually beneficial relationship.
But let's say you've got the team you want, or you've got a temporary team that you want, and even though you can keep upgrading over and over, and you can find new items over and over, it's one of the few games where I didn't feel like I had to keep grinding to get further into the game. Now obviously some grinding will be required to make it easier, but it didn't feel like the story was made impossible because I didn't do some side quests. Admittedly, I didn't really get too far into the game. I believe I'm at 43% if I'm not too mistaken, which isn't that far, but considering the time that I put into it, about 3 hours now, that's quite a lot of gameplay that I've got ahead of yourself. So about 8 hours, 9 hours if you want to complete the story, and a lot more hours if you want to do all the side quests as well, which admittedly they've got some very interesting dynamics with them as well, be it delivering some stuff or be it getting into a combat where you've got to do a certain objective. For example, one of them was you had to go into a school ground and you had to be the first one to kill the bell. Now, killing the bell would mean that you would ring the bell, and if you rang the bell, you would get recruits into the combat to help deal with the enemies. But if they killed the bell first, then they've got the recruits, and you've got to deal with that instead. And there's 3 of these bells in the entire map. Another one was where you were in a volcano, and the volcano was slowly starting to erupt, so you had to make your way over towards the exit whilst being attacked by enemies, which was also actually one of the hardest fights I've done so far, because I lost everything except 2 characters who were both on about 10 HP, which is very frightening indeed. But it put me on my toes, it put me on edge, despite being a brackets simple game. Very interesting gameplay and very interesting dynamics, everything all around. But yeah, the story stands out the most for me. So how does the fighting itself then work? Because I've been talking about recruiting. Well, the fighting itself is you've got these 6 different characters and you can equip them with whatever you want. So you can have some with a mace, you can have some with a sword, with a great sword and a rapier, and then you can give them big shields or small shields or a net to get your enemies down, or a throwing item or anything like that, and you can equip them with whatever you want and they'll just make use of it. And that's such an interesting thing, because you can create the team you want and you can change it depending on I'm going to face a lot of enemies with helmets, for example. If that's the case, get a lot more clubs, because a club does extra damage against a helmet. Or a rapier, for example, does gives you more dodge chance. So if you have an enemy that does one hit but is very, very strong, you can get the dodgy character. Or if you got a lot of archers in your enemy team, you can put a lot of shields up instead to block the archers' damage. Or if you've got a lot of enemies that move around, so you can get more ranged, for example. Eventually, obviously, you're going to create a team that has got a bit of everything to deal with whatever is going ahead of yourself. But the idea stands there that you can always prepare for a certain fight. So if you know what's coming, then you can prepare for it. You can make yourself become that much stronger against it. And if you were to not do that, then obviously you're at a disadvantage for a little bit compared to if you were prepared, which always makes a bit of sense, but there you go. Now, another thing I've realized is there's no items in the game, which, in a sense, I mean, I wasn't really expecting there to be, but you can buy items in the markets, and these items will be a campfire to heal up your characters in between combats, or be it more of those cages with which you can recruit your enemies. Now, all in all, the game I find incredibly hilarious and fun to play, and it is a game that I've been playing almost non-stop for the couple of hours that I've been preparing to make this video. I would say this game is absolutely worth giving a try. So, by all means, go for it. Alright, well, that was the end of that. So that was Pit People from the Behemoth. If you did like the video, please press the like button, subscribe if you are new, which is probably everybody at this point. And if you didn't like it, the dislike button is right there. But given this is my first video in this program, this kind of idea, I would prefer you just gave me some direct feedback instead. So leave a comment, and that's probably, I've done the typical YouTuber thing right now. Press the like button, do the comments, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. I'll try not to be as insane. No chances. Bye.